going to show you guys how to use Microsoft Power Automate in order to automate a workflow using the Tableau TX1. We're going to use the webUI and Microsoft Power Automate to go through the whole manipulation of that UI in order to get you that forensic extraction. Now, Power Automate, we're just using Power Automate Desktop here. If you have a standard business account, either through your employer or an organization like IASIS that provides a Office 360 account with your membership, it's a great reason to keep up your membership in IASIS. Power Automate comes in that standard business 365 account, and you log into the web, you can download the desktop version, which is what I've done here on this computer. The only thing I've done additionally, and what we're going to go through, is there's some browser extensions. When we get to pulling up a browser, we're going to call Chrome itself, and that's an add-on extension. I didn't have to go and install it. Power Automate prompted me to do that, and it just installed it, and I was able to use it right away. So it was really simple. If you have trouble, just Google browser extensions for Power Automate, and it should get you there. So here is where you get your home here. It gives you some examples, but of my flows. And I've already done a few tests, but we're going to work on this one here. Going to edit it. As it loads up here, and I already have it saved what I already did. So we're going to go through this, and we're going to create all this. I want to show you one that was done. Just going to show you what we're going to go through. The first thing here is we're going to launch Chrome, which is going to bring up the browser. We're going to populate the username field, and we're going to populate the password field. And then we're going to tell it to click on that submit button. And it's going to know what to put into these because we're going to create these variables over here. And those variables are what it's going to input as it goes through. And as we submit it, we're going to click on our duplicate option. We're going to go into job notes. We're going to put in our variable for examiner, our variable for case ID. Then we're going to go down to the sources. We're going to select a source. We're going to select a destination. We're going to mount a network location for that destination. We're going to name our image file. Then we're going to enable the automated acquisition. The reason why it's automated acquisition because that's the source I'm choosing. I think it's the easiest way to set this up. TX1 has the automated acquisition. So long as you have something plugged in there, it's going to do that one device rather than having to select a device. Because you can have up to 3 devices pretty much queued, I believe, on the TX1. I think automating choosing between 3 different devices would be tricky. But if we do that automated and we just have one plugged in, it goes. We plug another one in. I might fool around with trying to figure out how exactly it the automated acquisition in TX1 queues those and maybe create a flow to mimic that. So you can do up to those 3 queued like overnight or something. I think it's something doable that once you learn this process I'm going to walk you through in a moment, that we can do things like that without too much problems. So I'm going to close out this one, and I'm going to create a new flow. We're going to call it TX1 automation. Power FX, this is pretty much a Power Automate command line that you can use. I'm not going to use it for this, but that is there if you wanted to learn how to use that command line to do some of this stuff. You can also call command line. So once you have your flows up here, you see along the edge here a lot of different options. We're only going to use 3 different options. Well, four different options out of all these. So there's a lot more here that it can do to involve calling scripts to include PowerShell and Python. So there you can see the power, the amount of things we could probably do here. If you had like a PowerShell script that created your folder structure, you could have a flow that calls that script, create your folder structure for your case. Then you do your TX1 automation to get your image and then where you want it in that folder structure. And then maybe you have a Python script that calls, Axiom to open up that image and process it. There's some things we can grow this. So let's just start with our TX1 automation here. So we're going to do launch new Chrome. Here's launch new instance. It needs the ULR. Having a hard time talking. Getting a little tongue tied, but here we go. So I'm just going to copy and paste that in. I'm going to hit save. Now once I have that in, I want to create some variables. Because the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start populating these fields. So I need an input variable for what's going to be the username. So input username. It doesn't let me give me a space, so everything's going to be there. Set up a nice simple username of remote for this. I'm going to do input for the password. So input password. I can't have a space. Now here you can mark it sensitive. My super complex password. ICAC test password here. With it marked as sensitive, you'll still see the password here, but when it automates, it enters it in to the password field, you won't see the password being typed in. So it gives you a little bit of security there. I'm going to go ahead and create 3 more inputs. One is going to be examiner name. Which is going to be my name. One's going to be case ID. I'm going to do my case structure. And then one is going to be item name. And these are the main values that we'd have to put in whenever we were doing a TX1 automation. A manual manipulating the UI, or if we're typing on the TX1 itself, these are the things we'd enter in. Now on your default settings, you can add some of these in. Like example, if on your default settings, your examiner name's always in there because you're the only examiner, then you don't need to do the variable for that because it's going to auto-populate if that's in your TX1 default settings. So depending on your default settings, what you'll have to add, you can, subtract or add to this. So item name, I'm going to do item 1. Then I add case ID normally because I like to duplicate stuff when I'm looking at my EO1 files. I have a description and then I have a file size. And that's just how I name my things. I like to have those variables done first so that they're ready, because once I call the steps, I can't create the variables when I'm in those steps. I have to have the variables already created. So there's the first of our 4 commands was launching Chrome. Our next one's going to be populate web text field. And so the web browser, it's on the browser instance. It's going to give us some text in the UI element. So the UI element, we're going to add a UI element. This is pretty cool because we just have to highlight, control click, and then we choose the variable. So input username. Now it knows to take that variable username and put it exactly where we said in that the website. And the reason why it can do that is if we having a brain fart of where if we look at developers, it's kind of going off of in the HTML that spot to know that that's where it needs to go. A little bit of the underworking of what it's actually selecting to know what it's doing there. Okay, so we have input username. We need to populate again. And this time, we're going to add UI element. We're going to choose the password location. And we're going to use our input password. Now the next thing is we need to get it to click this submit button. So instead of populating, we're going to go to click, and there's a click on web page. Again, it's going into that browser instance that's been called originally, and UI, and we just control click. Now I'm going to close this, and we're going to test. It's going to call up the web page, puts in remote, puts in the password, and you can see it's been sterilized, and now we're in to the actual web interface. So here we're going to add a lot more clicking, because we're just going to tell it how to click through the web UI. UI element, we're going to have it click on duplicate. Now we need to click on duplicate so we can tell it where to click next. So instead of click, we're going to go populate. Actually, no, we need to click. Having trouble typing. And we just need to get into that job notes. So we have a click on job notes. Now we click on job notes. Now we populate. Populate web text field. Yeah. We use this to tell it where to put that. Right there where an examiner's name is. We already have our examiner name variable done. We're going to populate again. Add the UI element where the case ID is. We use our case ID variable. So at this point we've opened it, we've logged in, we've chose duplicate, we chose job notes, we've added examiner name and case ID. So next we got to go to source. So we got to go to click again. So we need to navigate through the web page. Now we're going to click on source. Now I have a thumb drive here and then automated acquisition. We're going to choose automated acquisition, and it'll automatically choose that one thumb drive I have plugged in. So we're just going to go to click again, add UI element, and automated acquisition. Now once we're clicked the automated acquisition, we need to get out of here. So our next click is going to be on the X. Save it, and we click on the actual X. That moves us out. We need to navigate to destinations. Now we're actually going to go through and choose the mounted one. Now my mounted drive is showing here. However, sometimes if it's been turned off or it's your first time logging in, it's not going to have that populated. So in order to avoid having an error in the workflow, we're going to have it manually go through the whole process of choosing that network drive. So we're going to have it go up to the plus sign, and then we're going to click the plus sign. We're going to have it choose the mount bookmark, and we have to choose the mount bookmark. And then we're going to have it choose the drive here. Now, if you guys don't know how to mount, create a bookmark for your network drives in the TX1, or how to network your TX1, shoot me a message. I can walk you through that also. Now we need to exit this. So we add a UI element to click on the X. Save it. Now we click on the X. Now we just gotta go down to image settings. Another click on the web page. Save it. Now we have to click on the web page so we can get to here. And normally I default item, so I don't have to type in item when I'm manually doing this, but we're going to go ahead and have it type over all that with our variable. So we're just going to populate. Got extra C in there. Populate web filter page. UI element. Click on that field. We're going to tell it to use our item name. Save. Click on web page. Because the last thing we need to do is just tell it to start duplication. So I'm going to close this out. And we're just going to run this whole flow. Calls up the web page, enters your username variable, enters in password, hits the submit, goes to desktop, examiner name, case ID, source, IMA acquisition, destination, bring it up, mount, go to our network, image setting, image name, and there it started. And there it goes. I want to make sure that you guys actually saw it start to actually work before I stopped it, because I don't need a copy of the thumb drive I have in there. In the EO1, that's what I have set up as my default. I believe the TX1 is the EX01 is the default, which I changed mine to EO1. A few things to be aware of on these populate fields. I did have an error every once in a while where it wasn't entering the full variable. Like instead of remote, it would do remo or remote and drop off the E. If you have that problem, if you go down to advanced here, this option to populate text using physical keystrokes, turn that off and that fixes that error. So if you're having that on either the username, password, or any of the other variables, just go into that populate field, advanced, and turn off the physical keystrokes. And it'll fix that error. But I hope this gives you an idea of a free resource that you can use to do some automation. There's also something I was working on. If you saw the video, I posted on LinkedIn, I was using an input display dialog, and I'll put that down here. And it pretty much prompts you for that default value. And that's what I was using for the case ID and the item name. But I need to test that some more because it wasn't looking like it was showing up on the screen when I was doing it. But you can go in here and we can edit these variables. So if we were, if you're doing this and you're doing drive after drive, you would just have to go in here, change the case number if it's a different case number. If all these items are on the same case, you just got to change the item name and rerun your automation. Is the only manual task you would need to do for your workflow, which I think that's quicker than doing the whole thing. It is a little bit of manual stuff, but at some point, you have to interact with it to tell it what you want things set as. Even if you were scripting it, you'd have to do that much. So I hope that if you have any questions, just send me a message on here, and I do what I can to answer your questions or point you in the right direction. And good luck forensicating.